And now I want to talk about the individual faders. Each one of these channels is a designated line for either vocal or an instrument up at the front. There are 16 channels, which we don't use, and there's also 17 through 32 channels, and here's the buttons that you go back and forth between this group of people and this group of people. Now you notice here, channel 1, you know, channel 1, 2, 3, but right now this is channel 1. It's connected to an input right behind that partition, that wooden partition right up there where the piano is. And behind that partition, which is right there, there are 4 inputs, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And we've been plugging in this number 1 is in actually number 1. And let me go to the next second. This is kind of confusing, so hang in there with me. This, you know, it says channel 18. It's actually connected, hooked into channel input 3 up there, but with, you know, behind where the piano is. And that's really all that I have connected back there. Sometimes I will connect channel 2, but input 2 back there, but that's not set up on the board. I've done it with my other logic group, but right now this is all we're doing. Right, so now come down here and you'll see 17, 18, 19, 20. I have pretty much all the instruments going through in this channel 17 through 32. Now let's talk a little bit about how we select. You said, well, that's channel 2, but it's in 20. Now, how does that work? Okay. Well, first I want to talk about what you can do when you select a channel. All right. Now you can see there's 3 buttons here on each channel that does things. This mute button does what it says. It's going to mute the sound. It's going to, you know, so that's really nice. If you don't want to mess with your fader, you're going to leave it like right where it is. You can mute or unmute. And usually you want to keep everything muted if you're not using it. The reason is, and I don't always do that, because also when you turn the board and you're in a hurry, sometimes you forget that it's muted and then you have a problem. So I do leave them unmuted. But when we're doing something, or I'm leaving the room and I'm not gonna, and there's nothing going on, I'm gonna mute everything. A lot of times I'll just mute the main one to cut all the sound off, because you don't want open microphones left by themselves, all right? Because that's where feedback can happen. Because what microphones do is they suck in sound. They're taking in sound. And the more sounds they take in, you can overload it and it will produce the feedback sound. That's why when people get when they go up to a microphone, they start talking, they get feedback, their natural reaction is to pull the microphone away from their mouth. But that is the absolute worst thing you can do for the microphone, because it actually creates feedback. Why you're getting feedback is the microphone's too loud, and so it's sucking in more than just the sound you need. It's sucking in other sounds, ambient sounds, which is overloading it. So the best thing to do, and I try to make this a point with people, that's the good thing to remember, is when you're on a microphone, the closer you get to the microphone, the better. The closer you get to the microphone, that means the sound technician can lower the sound, doesn't need to boost it up so much, and that will help from creating feedback. Feedback is usually caused because you have too many sounds coming into the microphone from around. So if a person steps back from the microphone or they're pulling away from the microphone, you're having to increase the level, which actually sucks in more sound, which causes more problems. So, try to instruct vocalists and speakers to go, stay as close to the microphone as possible. You get a better sound and we create less feedback. Close to the microphone is the best. Being far away is bad. It's danger of having feedback. All right, so muting it is important. This solo button, if you're listening through to the headphones, I've got it plugged in. There's another one on the other side over here. You can plug in a headphone over here as well. When you've got a headphone, now that doesn't affect the mix or the main faders, but with headphones, you can actually listen to different channels, and it doesn't affect the overall sound. You can do it. So when I'm listening, when I'm trying to locate a sound, let's say I can't hear the guitar, and so I'll put my headphones on and select solo. Now, and then sometimes if I don't know where he is or something's happened, I'll just go solo until I find him. So you can hear individual instruments or voices by soloing them. And sometimes you're having a problem. It's way easier just to solo out a channel. And you can't do more than one, so you can only listen to that one person. So you're going to go, what's going on with the piano? It's like, okay, let me listen. You know, by soloing it, you can listen to individual instruments or voices, and you don't have to mess with anything else. You have to boost, because if you didn't have that, you'd have to turn everybody down and boost that up, and it'd be a mess. But while they're performing, you can actually solo it out and listen to that channel and see what's going on. The next important button is the select button, and this is a very important button because it's where you can control a lot of things for these different channels. So when you select a channel, now I'm in bass right now. First of all, the gain. This is a gain knob. And this is actually controls, it's a major control, a volume control, as the sound's coming into the board, into your channel, and it goes right through this. So this is what you want to set. Now what I normally do is I set everybody at the same gain. All right? I don't always do it. I mean, you can fine tune things, but sometimes like piano. And now there's a reason why there is a reason why you don't set them all the same, but to start off with, I always set everybody, and I'm going solo, I'm select, and select, and I always start off by select and putting the gain knob in about the same place. Because you will adjust it, depending on the volume of the instrument or the voice. But when you set the gain knob about the same volume, then you can do fine-tuning adjustment with these faders. And you can do kind of more fine-tuning then. But if you're up here and you still can't hear them very well for some reason, maybe because of their instrument or they're just a quiet person, then you can come up here and adjust this higher, and then you can back this one off so it's more in line. So what I normally try to do is adjust the gain for each channel so that these are about even. Because you have things like this, that's more difficult to control a balanced sound that way. So this select knob is a very important knob. All right, the next thing about the select button is over here to the brains. Now I'm going to click on home. You'll see home, and this has to do with a lot of things that you should never have to touch. And I'm going to go to the right, and here are my source. These source numbers are all the different inputs up front. All right. So for instance, when I select number 1, I come over here and I see that it is plugged into number 1 up there, which it is. That's what we do. We plug the vocalist. For this year I had a vocalist up there, and I plugged her into number 1 down here. Now, number 20, see here? I'm going to select number 20. Boop. Come over here, and you can see under this configuration, my source is input 20 up there, which is on the bottom, on the right-hand side, in front of the pulpit here, on the right-hand side, right before that little ledge. There's 4 inputs down there, 18, 19, 20, 21, I think. But we use 18 and 20 for the most part. Now 18, I plug in there, and this is the channel, because we selected it, came over here to config, and made sure it was in 20, which has been, I saved it so it's there. And I had a vocalist up here on the stage left, up there on the right-hand side, on the vocal. And so that the input was closer to her down there. 20 rather than coming all the way over here from input 2 and laying cable all the way over there, we just went straight in front of her, which happened to be input 20. Input 7, this is channel 3, but it's input 7, and the input is right there. That's input 7. All right, I think it's 4, 5, 6, 7 right down there. And so we assign, and I would put, whenever I have a vocalist or instrument that's playing down there, it was just easier to plug into 7. 4 is actually in 4. 5 is in channel 9, which is down there at the front, right in front of the pulpit. 11 is also right in front of the pulpit. So this is channel 6, but we have it plugged into input 11 down there, and so forth and so on. Bass, on channel 17, we're running the bass, and input 24 is on the other side of this partition down here. You see where the black tarp is? Well, on the other side of that wooden partition there are 4 inputs. We are plugged into input 24 for the bass guitar. Input 3, so we were running acoustic guitar through input 3. That's in the same location where channel 1 is for the vocals. We had an acoustic guitar which he played right down in front of that, so we had him plugged into input 3 there. That vocalist was plugged into input 1. Electric guitar, it says in 27, and this is where it gets very confusing about this board and this, and they might have this changed by the time you're looking at this, where the inputs can get a little confusing. We are actually plugged into, well, let me show you. I'm sorry. So I'm going to select this, go here. We're in 27, but actually it's 18 up there. It gets so confusing. The input that it was plugged into says 18, but when I try to adjust this to 18, where is it? Right here. It didn't work. Anyway, it's one of the little issues we've had. The piano, even though it says in 32, the input that it's plugged into, that's 32, which I don't know why, is underneath the pulpit area. There's inputs 4 and 5. That input 4 is not really 4, it's input 32. Anyway, this I don't know how this was done, but anyway, hopefully they'll have these kind of weird problems taken care of at some point. But if they don't, know that channel input 32 is actually input 4 up on the pulpit stage. Right now, this channel 31 is also plugged into the same input as this is channel 16. And this is the belt pack, or the lavalier, the wireless lavalier that you hook onto your belt. We're also plugged the violin into it because, and this is on channel 21, the reason why is because the violin was using the lavalier microphone to amplify the violin, and so we plugged it into, both of them are in input 31. That way, basically we're saying, oh, wherever the lavalier is, then these will control it. So one thing, if it's still set up that way, you want to make sure this, when the violinist or whoever's using that belt pack is using for the violin, that this is off, that channel 16 is off, because then you're having, if you don't, I'm gonna go down to the next one, because if not, then you're going to have 2 volume controls and it's a mess, You'll be wondering why is it turned off? I turned it off. It's like, oh, this one's still on. So anyway, when you can't use the violin, when you use a violin, you don't use the lavalier for the speaker. You use something else. That's how we've done that. All right.